January 7th, 2018. Smoldering. The heat that reaches deep burns complete without the brilliance of the flame. I always intended to set myself on fire, but not at this hour, not without a witness. My middle finger is a blister, and there's a hole in my side, and the witness came and sucked on it. The witness came and put his hand inside. Some things are coincidences, and some things are thoughtless, and some things are done because they had to be done. I've now seen the kind of fire that can't be put out by water. Now I remember the kind of hunger that keeps you up all night. If you want spontaneous combustion, drift to sleep with embers in your hand. If you want something broken, keep it on the windowsill with the window unlocked. If you want a mystery, keep your bedroom messy. Another burnt piece of a farewell letter returns from the sky months later, and my lungs are still smoldering as the earth at its core is like the inside of a cocoon. If the earth is a cocoon, are we not the cocoon too, cocooning the earth with our feet? Perhaps there is still some nature in us, carrying out the subconscious act of covering the earth. Perhaps we can't help but hurt, as growth does, as the years wrap around and the moon wraps around it. What's left to be dissolved? Hi, I'm Mixed Tectonicus, and this is Channeled Poetry, a space for poetry and imagery and place to interact in curious ways. For example, the poem I just shared. So a few days ago, I was Googling videos of things being set on fire to use as a background for this show. And that night, the couch in my yard caught on fire, and my coat, and my hand. And even after dousing it completely every hour, all through the night, it continued to smolder for about 15 hours. And I wasn't planning on sharing any of my own poetry on this show, but it was just one of those moments where poetry entered into my life. And although I hope it never enters my life in the form of fire again, for me, this was a reminder that poetry is so much more than the written word. It's a living thing. It's an element. And so now here we are in 2018. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot going on poetically in Tucson beyond couch fires right now. So this Saturday, the 13th, Casa Libre will be hosting a reading by Moss Hope Angel and Jasper Avery at our bar. Queer poetry and grilled cheeses, yes. 7 p.m., $5 suggested donation. And Saturday, January 20th, is the Queer Youth Art Showcase featuring poetry, physical art, and resources for LGBTQ youth 21 and younger, and a drag show. That's at the Thornhill Lopez Center on 4th Avenue at 5 p.m. And 7 p.m. also that night, POG will be hosting a reading by Julian Brolaski and Tucson's poet laureate, T.C. Tolbert, at the Steinfeld Warehouse. And that's a $5 donation, $3 for students, no one turned away for lack of funds. And here's a clip of Julian that I love.
And these next two poems are on the Poets for Living Water site. This one's called Who Is Not Your Cousin? Bears may be brutal, but they never did nothing to bruise up the earth. And English is so filled with periphrasis. Metal band seeks basis, in which one searches America backward. I pay money for money. Who holds up their coffee by way of hailing a taxi? For pigeon read rock dove. Jobs that fell through. Say goodbye to the grouper forever, who therewithal, palm and pine, are so thoroughly discomfited. Whose manifest asp. All of them what devastates, her ally who can't stop to mark their thumbs to plug the hole gushing fruitlessly. Everfish, whose manifest aspect dear regardless, whose manifest asp oil gushing unabated. On the way to the airport, you pass by this sad little enclave of horses, whose manifest aspect dear regardless. Fisher people now in the employ of BP at deep water. Dead sea turtles and local shrimpers laying useless oil booms. And this is the last one I'll read. It's called Whose Brain Pan Literally Creaturely. It has 3 epigraphs from a reading, the EOG reading that happened here just the other day. From Paulo Javier, Philip Marinovich, and Suya and Juliet Lee. On the contrary, come up simpering, Paulo. Crickets are not giving each other feedback. Crickets are not giving each other feedback, Philip. I am a hammerhead shark, a pair of milky eyes that refuse to triangulate, Juliet. Whose brain pan literally creaturely, who on the contrary come up simpering, creating whole dead zones in the Gulf. A legality, therefore, bristling the loam. Thousands and thousands of patches of oil and water and oil plumes found under the Gulf's surface, the oil and gas together, literally devouring oxygen, which levels currently, 7th June 2010, at 3 milligrams per liter. Animals begin to be stressed at 2 milligrams per liter, so it is soon becoming a dead zone. The ocean is dead, long live the ocean. Metrology in place of the porgy. Seasonique advertising 4 periods a year. Who says that time of the month has to be every month? Who says that time has to be every time to try this? Kids screaming, go meet. Can I pay you in gum? Shore littered with dead Greeks, dead dolphins, dead pelicans, seagulls unrecognizable as living or dead, creatures made crude, while humans flock to see Sex in the City, Islamophobia, and queer appropriation. Can I pay you in gum? It's good for consuming media. The first synthetic life form, Cynthia, pronoun it, created by a computer. Bull horn through the toreador's throat. A wizened creature nonetheless, who skins perspective, but the humans, they had got quite profligate. No sauce nor sustenance, de-access sessioning the fishes from the very day they withheld their greeting from me. The manatee become the mentor, to shut the person down and render their attack, therefore, inelegant.
And Sunday, January 21st, is an event, Poetry and Pancakes. It's a fundraiser for Casa Libre. It's $10, and that gets you all you can eat, plus a mimosa. And that's $8 for kids. There's going to be poetry performances by Jane Moore, Kim Cutter, Natalie Brewster Nguyen, Alan All, Kimmy Isley, and Laura Mayer. That's from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at 901 North 13th Avenue. And then Sunday, January 28th, one of my favorite poets ever, C.A. Conrad, performs at Casa Libre, 6:30 p.m., $5 suggested donation. And C.A. is also going to be holding a workshop on occult poetics at the Poetry Center that weekend, with the option of receiving a personal ritual from them. And then Thursday, February 1st, the Poetry Center's spring resident, Khaled Matawa, will be giving a reading. And he's translated 10 volumes of modern Arabic poetry and has also received 3 pushcart prizes for his own work. And that's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Poetry Center for free. Okay, one more. Also February 1st is the Poetics of Listening, a community harmonic. 6 local performers will be presenting original work based on HARK, listening sessions. And HARK is an ensemble of theater and art makers committed to the practice of mindful encounter with the community for the purpose of listening, archiving, and devising new performance works, from shared responses to critical social, political, and philosophical questions. And they'll be featuring performances by Kristen Nelson, Sophia Terasawa, Jane Moore, myself, Ara Valdez, and Claire Hong Mueshke. That's February 1st, 7 p.m. at the YWCA. It's a $10 donation, no one turned away for lack of funds. Love to see you there. So, every episode I like doing a poetry prompt. Okay, so the prompt is, write a sentence made of 18 words. And then write 18 of these sentences. And then, from these 324 words, make an 18-word poem, or a 324-word poem. And here is some inspiration for you from Just Livin' Baby.
I just want to let you know that I'm so fucking proud of you. Excuse me? Why am I proud? Look at you. You done damn near made it to the new year. We only got about 3 more days. Ain't you excited? You barely making it. Bitch, you done trusted your process. You on your own grind. You doing your own thing. You didn't give up. What the fuck? That's something to be excited about. And for 2018, we ain't doing no resolution. Fuck a resolution. Our resolution is we ready. We ready for the hurt. We ready for the love. We ready for the opportunities. We ready for whatever's coming our way. We ain't gotta get ready because we been ready. We been doing our thing and we gonna keep on doing it. Nothing gonna knock us off our shit. Ever. Trust your process. Continue to put your best foot forward. Continue to do you and live your life. You deserve it. And like I said, I'm proud of your ass. Keep doing you.
Okay, so I hope you try it out. If you'd like to share your poem on the show or have me read it on the show, send it to channeledpoetry@gmail.com. And the link for that email address is going to be in the show description. I really do want to read what you have to write, even if you don't want me to share it. I'd love to see it. So I'll end this episode with a clip from a conversation between Kristen Nelson and TC Tolbert in anticipation of TC's reading on January 20th. I love hearing the backstory of a poem just as much as the poem itself. And I chose this clip because it's rare to hear a poet talk at such length and so openly about what was going on behind their poem. And it ends with TC sharing the poem, so please watch to the end. And thank you for watching. TV is weird, and to be honest, if I weren't hosting this show, I'm not sure if I would take the time to watch it, because all I watch right now are things that just kind of distract me and get me out of the reality of my moment. I'm working on that. But I'm glad you're watching, because that's what this show is for. Sometimes TV can keep us company, and so can poetry. And I hope this does. So here's TC.
I want you to talk a little bit about your Dear Melissa poems.
Can't hear you.
I'm asking TC, one of TC's newer projects that he's been working on are a series of poems called Dear Melissa. And I was asking him to speak to that project and those poems and tell us more about it. Did you bring one by any chance to share?
Yeah, I brought my laptop. So I brought all of them.
Okay. Would you want to start
I'm not reading all of them.
Do you want to start by sharing one so that there's some context in case folks...
Oh, we can just talk about them in the abstract.
No! So you want to hear a poem?
Yeah. Thanks a lot, y'all. Well, I'll talk about the context while I'm pulling it up. So Melissa is my birth name, and some trans folks refer to the name that they were given by the people who cared for them at a young age as their dead name, and which I think is totally awesome and important to name. I still refer to Melissa as my birth name. When I changed my name to TC, it felt really important for me to keep my name Melissa. So that's my middle name now, Melissa Dawn to be exact. And that was a big moment for me because I was always, sort of, I always identified actually as a dyke, and that felt really comfortable for me. It still feels actually really comfortable for me. And when I started testosterone, my intention and my hope was not. I never felt trapped in the wrong body. Some folks do. That's not my experience. So I don't want to act like that's my experience. And I don't want to act like there's a universal trans narrative, which I think can be pretty damaging. For, again, in the same way that toxic masculinity is damaging universal narratives of any sort. So, so I've, not had any surgeries. I'm on testosterone. And when I transitioned, it felt very much like Melissa's who got me to TC. Like, I couldn't be TC without Melissa. But that didn't mean I wanted to hang out as Melissa for the rest of my life. It was just like, she was awesome. Thanks, girl. And so, high five, like handoff kind of. That said, I certainly spent, I would say, a lot of time not foregrounding her or that history. And I, in retrospect, I can sort of look back and sort of see ways that might be my own shit or whatever, but also just needing to get situated in this body and this self. Anyway, back to the accident, which was when I was laying around and suddenly really in my body again, and I started to gain weight, which is neither here nor there, except for that suddenly my breasts were huge. We always joke about, because I'm always like, my breasts are so big.
I'm like, yes, sister, it's like twins.
Many conversations. Bless you. So, for a long time I wore a compression shirt, and then stopped because it was just starting to hurt and stuff like that. And then I started to gain this weight, and so I went from being able to pass as a flat-chested person to suddenly really having breasts, and I know they're not huge, but they feel huge and they're still visible.
I honor your experience.
And my hips also suddenly went from like structurally sort of childbearing to now they have the padding that goes along with that ability. And so my body, which through the course of transition became my dad's face and body, and I can literally see that. Now the rest of me is so clearly my mom's body. I mean, I like look in the mirror and I'm like, hey, Darlene, like what is happening, So that's been this, on top of the accident stuff, this other sort of gender thing that came up. And so in lying about the yard and the house, I was thinking, I wonder what Melissa thinks about all this. Like, I want to, like, pick up that, like, 17-year-old girl and that, like, 21-year-old girl who got married to a man in a big Catholic wedding, and, like, bring them here and be like, what do you think? Like, you dig it? Like, did we do all right? And so I just started writing these letters to her. That's the backstory. Ooh, that was long.
That's good.
Okay, can I do this one? Can I give you just a touch more backstory for this particular one, called Dear Melissa, as they are called? Sure. My mom, who I'm very close with now, but when I first, through several iterations of coming out as queer and then coming out as trans and then starting testosterone, she's struggled with it a lot. And at one point when I started testosterone, threatened to kill herself. And so it was hard. Like, we had some hard times. And then I'd say like 3 or 4 years after that, she came to visit me here in Tucson, and And she was chill, like she was cool. We were hanging out, and I was like, Mom, what happened? And she said, you know, all of your life I prayed for God to change you. And I was like, this isn't going well. and she was like, but I realized I was praying the wrong prayer. And what I need to be praying is for God to change me, because you're fine, you know. I know, right? Go D. And so our relationship is complex and ever evolving, and this poem is sort of dealing with that. And this statement that she said to me when I was a kid, which is, she said, I wish you'd never been born. And that was sort of a thing that she would say when things were hard. Dear Melissa, I wish you, my mother once told me, mother of my childhood, even though water is water weary, what is prayer, if not quiet, who has made me? What hands you become when you touch? Who laid down on whose body? Whose face and whose shoulders worth shaking? What will I not hear when I look back at you? Who is not the mother of a daughter? Who is not the mother of a man? We are right to be afraid of our bodies. Wind is carried by what is upright and still moves what had been buried deep enough in the ground to be called roots. When will this be the world where you stop? Whatever broke into you was torn by the contact. A face wears a face it can see. What is alive is unrecognizable. Need it be? Who is my mother, mother? No one. Who hasn't killed herself by growing into someone? I'm sorry, you have never been born.